Good morning, students. So in this video we will discuss about casting defects, causes and remedies of these defects. So casting defects are blowholes, porosity, shrinkage, misron and cold shots, inclusions, hot tears or hot cracks or pools, cuts and washes, metal penetration, drops, fusion, short metal, shifts, rattles or buckles, swells, hard spots, runouts, crosses, warpage. Depending on the nature of the defects are classified into various types. So now we will discuss the causes and remedies of all these casting defects. The first defect is blowhole. Blowhole is a defect which appear as cavities in a casting. So the causes of this defect are excess moisture content in molding sand. So any one of these will cause blowhole in the casting. Rust and moisture on chills, chaplets and inserts. If cores are not sufficiently baked, excessive use of organic binders, if molds are rammed very hard. So either one or more than one of these possible causes will result the blowholes in the final product. So remedies, you have to control all these possible causes to avoid this defect. So accordingly, the remedies are to avoid excess moisture content. We have to control moisture content. Then use clean and rust-free chills, chaplets and metal inserts. Then core must be baked properly. Organic binders are not to be used adequately. They must be used in proper proportion. Next is to make the ramming proper. We have to ram it to certain extent, not to be very hard, and provide adequate venting in molds and cores. Next is porosity. Porosity is a defect which appears in the form of microscopic pores. Blowholes are the cavities, whereas porosity is a defect which appear as microscopic pores. So possible causes are high pouring temperature, dissolved gas in metal charge, less flux used, molten metal not properly degassed, slow solidification of casting, high moisture and low permeability in the mold. So these are the causes which results porosity. So we have to regulate the pouring temperature. Next, control metal composition so that gas will not be dissolved. Increase flux proportion, ensure effective degassing, modify getting and risering system, and reduce moisture and increase permeability of the mold. Next is shrinkage. Shrinkage appear in the form of voids due to volumetric shrinkage of molten metal during solidification. So if the amount of molten metal is not calculated properly, then after solidification the volume of the metal will be reduced and shrinkage appears. So possible causes for this defect are faulty getting and rising system and improper chilling. So to avoid this, we have to ensure proper directional solidification by modifying getting, rising and chilling. Next is Mishran. Mishran appear in the form of incomplete casting as certain section of the mold remains unfilled. This defect appears like an incomplete casting. So this occurs because of lack of fluidity in molten metal, such that the metal will not reach to a particular portion of the mold, faulty design and faulty getting system. So to avoid this defect, we have to adjust proper pouring temperature to increase the fluidity of molten metal, and we have to modify the design and getting system so that the metal will reach to all parts of the mold. Next is cold shot. The cause and the remedies are same for both Mishran and cold shot, but there is a difference in nature of the defect. So the incomplete casting due to non-availability of metal in a particular part of the mold is known as Mishran, whereas where discontinuity occurs between two streams of molten metal. So two streams of molten metal will not be joined smoothly. So there the defect is known as cold shot. Otherwise the causes and remedies for both Mishran and cold shot are same. Next is inclusions. So these inclusions may be in the form of oxide, slag, dirt, sand and gas. So these will be included in the casting. So possible causes for inclusions are faulty getting system, faulty pouring, inferior molding or core sand, soft ramming of the mold. If mold will be rammed hard, then also we will get defects. And if mold will be rammed soft, then inclusions will occur. So the sand must be of proper quality and must be rammed to desired extent. And rough handling of mold and core also cause inclusions. So to avoid this defect, we have to modify getting system, improve pouring to minimize turbulence during pouring, use a superior sand having more strength, provide harder ramming and take care in handling of mold and core. Next is hot tears or hot cracks or pulls. These are cracks present either internally or externally. So first one was blowholes are cavities. Porosity is microscopic pores. Hot tear is a crack. This crack present either internally or externally, known as hot tear or hot crack or pulls. Causes are lack of collapsibility of core, lack of collapsibility of mold, faulty design, hard ramming of the mold. So for these reasons, there cracks present either in the internal part or in the external part of the casting, which is known as hot tear. So to avoid this defect, we have to improve core and mold collapsibility, modify design and provide softer ramming. Next is cuts and washes. The eroded sand appears as sand inclusion in some part of the casting and certain ragged spot of excess metals appears on the casting surface. This defect is known as cut and washes. So a part of the molding sand is washed and mixed with the excess metal and looks like a ragged spot on the casting surface. So causes are low strength of mold and core, lack of binders in facing and core sand, faulty getting design. So to avoid this defect, we have to improve mold and core strength, add more binders to facing and core sand, and improve getting system. So next defect is metal penetration. This defect occurs as a rough and uneven external surface on the casting. So causes for this defect are large grain size sand used, soft ramming of mold. Molding sand or core sand have low strength. Molding sand or core have high permeability. Pouring temperature of metal is too high. So to avoid this defect, we have to control the grain size of the sand, ramming of the molding sand or core sand, using of high strength sand. Next, reduce permeability by using finer grain size or with proper ramming. Next, you have to adjust pouring temperature. Next defect is drops. This defect appears as an irregular deformation of the casting. Causes are low green strength in molding sand and core, too soft ramming, inadequate reinforcement of sand projections and cores. So to avoid this defect, we have to modify sand composition for increased green strength, provide harder ramming, provide adequate reinforcement to sand projections and cope by using nails and some supports. Next is fusion. This defect appears as a rough glass of surface over the casting. Causes are low refractoriness in molding sand, faulty getting system, too high pouring temperature of metal, poor facing sand. So to avoid this defect, we have to improve refractoriness of the molding sand, modify getting system, use lower pouring temperature, improve quality of facing sand. Next is short metal. Appears in the form of small metal shots on the fractured surface of the casting. So short metal causes or is caused due to too low pouring temperature, excess sulfur content in metal, faulty getting system, high moisture content in molding sand. So to avoid this defect, we have to use higher pouring temperature, reduce sulfur content, modify getting system and reduce moisture content. Next is shifts. Shifts appear as a thin projection of metal called fin between two mating surfaces and sometimes results in incorrect dimension or incorrect location of holes. Causes are worn out or bent clamping pins. Clamping pins of cope and drag. If it is worn out or bent, then these shifts occur. Misalignment of two halves of the pattern or improper support of core. So to avoid this defect, we have to repair or replace the pins, repair or replace dowels causing misalignment, provide adequate support to core. Next is rattles or buckles. This appears as an irregular line over the casting. Causes for this defect are continuous large flat surface on casting, excessive mold hardness, lack of combustible additives in molding sand. So to avoid this, we have to take the remedies as break continuity of large flat surface by providing grooves and depressions, reduce mold hardness, suitably add combustible additives to the sand. Next is swells. The unintentional bulges found on the casting surfaces are known as swells. Causes for this defect are too soft ramming of mold, low strength of mold and core, mold not properly supported. So remedies are provide harder ramming, increase strength of mold and core, provide adequate support to mold. Hard spots. This defect generally occurs in iron castings which are rich in silicon content. Appears as spots on the casting surface where iron has more silicon content. So causes are faulty metal composition, means composition material having high silicon content, or faulty getting the casting design. So for remedies are suitably change the metal composition and modify the casting design. Next is runouts. This defect results in incomplete casting. This occurs due to faulty molding and defective molding boxes. So to avoid runouts, we have to improve molding technique and change the defective molding boxes. Next is crosses. Defect due to deformation of mold surface. Defective core boxes producing oversized cores, or worn out core prints on patterns producing undersized sheets for cores in the mold, or careless assembly of cores in the mold. So crosses. Defect due to deformation of mold surface basically occurs due to defective core box or core print or assembly of core in the mold. So to avoid this, we have to watch the core box. Repair or replace core boxes if it is defective. Repair or replace core prints of the pattern. Take adequate care in setting of cores in the mold. Next is warpage. Warpage is distortion in casting surfaces. A casting defect is an undesired irregularity in a metal casting process. So, if distortion occurs in the casting surface, this defect is known as warpage. So, this defect occurs because of continuous large flat surface on casting. No directional solidification of casting. To avoid this, we have to modify the casting design to break the continuity of a large flat surfaces and to facilitate proper directional solidification. So, this is all about the casting defects, their causes and remedies. So, from this video, we can conclude that during casting, it is very essential. Each part has certain role. You have to choose proper material, proper additives. Next, you have to prepare the mold and core properly. If mold box or core box is worn out, you have to repair or replace the same. Next, you have to choose the pattern, seeing that its core print is not worn out. So, both mold, core, pattern as well as molding sand and metal, pouring temperature, pouring process, getting system, risering system, casting design, use of chaplets, chills. So everything must be investigated properly so that there will be proper design with adequate ramming, not too hard, not too loose, and above all, that pouring temperature and getting and rising system must be designed properly so that it will allow metal flow, collapsibility of mold and core, and directional solidification to avoid any defect or to get proper casting.